What is going on with these migration changes in Rise of Kingdoms? We've gotten 2 emails in the same day, and I'm not really sure what they mean. So stick around in this video and see if we can figure it out. What's up, everybody? Psych out here with another Rise of Kingdoms video. There has been a lot of talk about these migration changes. I did a video a little while back talking about a whole bunch of changes that were being implemented. They just went down the server a couple of days ago, and I don't exactly know when they're going to actually be affecting gameplay. Some of them seem like they already are. Some of them seem like they're not quite here yet. It's really unclear to me when some of these are going to kick off. But we've been getting some notifications about the immigration rules adjustments, and it's never really been super clear how this is going to work. I sort of gave Rise of Kingdoms the benefit of the doubt and thought, okay, well, probably there'll be some limit, right? They said there would be a limitation of 30 people who can migrate back to redo a KVK2, 30 people who can migrate back to do a KVK3. But I thought, well, there'll probably be some way that the king of the kingdom can determine who those 30 people are. Probably people under a certain power won't count. If you're under 25 million or 30 million power, that won't count against that cap. But it seems like that might not be the case. So let's take a look here. We've gotten 2 emails today. This is the most recent one. This was the one from earlier today, mentioning some things about crystal. It says crystal acquisition changes, but they didn't talk about that at all. It was the same email we saw before about migration changes. And we see that certain kingdoms, things are going to be a little bit different for those kingdoms because of where they're at in their current season. But then we see here this point number 2, kingdoms will be subject to a cross-season immigration quota. Each kingdom will receive a maximum of 30 migrating characters per season. But again, it doesn't say if there's any restrictions around that. Now, it does say some things down here, cross-season immigration. So let's look at a couple of things here. Cross-season immigration will be subject to a quota. Kingdoms in the seasons 2 and 3, so that's KVK2, KVK3, will be able to receive a maximum of 30 migrating characters per season. Okay, we know that. Power limits for cross-season immigration will be determined by the king and confirmed 48 hours before immigration begins. So I'm not sure if they're confirming who those 30 migrants are or if they're confirming what that power limit's going to be. It's very unclear. It felt like, okay, maybe the king can decide who those 30 people will be. They recruit that. And there's been some screenshots going around suggesting maybe that is the case. But I'm not really convinced that that's what's going to happen because there's been some confusion here. And I'll show some screenshots I've got in a minute from some discussions with support talking about how this will work. Then there's some other rules here about how you can't migrate if you're more than 90 days old to within the same season. So that's not really a big deal here, but there is a big deal for particularly free-to-play low spenders who are trying to migrate back. There are some power limits on how that's going to work. This has to do with Rising Kingdoms and Empyrean Kingdoms, but it doesn't say anything about power limits for people trying to migrate back with respect to that 30 governor or 30 character cap. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here, and I think it could be a real problem for free-to-play and low spenders who would want to try to migrate back. Why do they want to migrate back? Because they want to avoid crystal technology. Crystal technology is pretty difficult for free-to-play and low spenders. Now, in the last video, I talked about the changes that they were making to crystal technology. We haven't quite seen what those are going to be yet. Particularly important are the pre-KVK crystal technology changes. If you can acquire a lot of crystals in pre-KVK, that has big ramifications for how KVK is going to begin. Now, there's a little bit of a concern if they put in something that's sort of like a battle pass or Lucerne Scrolls kind of thing for the crystals, for that technology. That means people who are spending are probably going to get access to a lot more crystals than people who aren't. So everyone's going to get more crystals, but again, the gap between spenders and non-spenders will just continue to increase. So that really doesn't solve the problem. What they really need to do is create a way to, for example, make marauders drop crystals, to give crystals from Marauder chests, because that would really incentivize people, particularly people putting in a lot of time, which again, you really have to do if you're a free-to-play player, who are trading off that time and that investment to sort of be more competitive with the crystal technology. So we'll have to see what happens there. But for right now, I'm a little concerned. Again, we got two of these emails. The second email is exactly the same part. They just took out that part about those specific kingdoms, but otherwise it's the exact same email. It doesn't say anything about crystal technologies. But it does mention this 30 governor limit. Now, we have some questions about this 30 governor limit, and I'm going to pull up here some screenshots, hopefully, that one of my alliance mates got from talking with some support. So this is what one of my alliance mates said. This is courtesy of Michelle or Snow. And Michelle says, is the king able to pick that 30 migrants, KVK2, or is it purely depending on how fast your fingers are after the update? And the support staff said it's surely depending on how fast your fingers are. So that suggests the king actually isn't able to decide who those 30 migrants are, and it's just going to be whatever 30 people migrate. Now, this is a huge, huge problem, because you can obviously tank a kingdom's migration. Right? You can just say, hey, that's a kingdom we might be competing against in KVK2. Let's just create a bunch of junk accounts, flood apply to migrate in with 10,000 power, 12,000 power accounts, just to take up their 30 migration spots so they can't get any high power players to migrate in, and we can beat them in KVK2 and we can beat them in KVK3. So this really creates this incentive to sabotage other kingdoms, which can't be what they wanted. But at the same time, it's so obvious that people would do this. How could they have not built the system to counteract this problem? So there's a real possibility that there's a real potential for sabotage happening here if this is how it goes. If what they say here is exactly how it is going to work. My friend Michelle here also asked, do people below 25 million power count on the 30 character migration? Because I thought, well, maybe people under a certain power level will count. So you can't just cheese it in that way. You can't just sabotage somebody's migration by sending a really low power accounts there. And they said, as typical, sorry for keeping you waiting. Sure, those players with lower power will also be counted in the immigration quota. So even low power migrants will count. So maybe there's a way for the king to limit those, but according to this says no, the king can't limit who it's going to be. And yes, those low power players will count against the quota. So it seems like sabotage is inevitable here unless this support information is wrong, right? Which is it's a real possibility that it's just wrong, that they don't know. And the reality is that the king can actually communicate with and coordinate who will be migrating in and who actually are those 30 migrants. So I don't know. The other thing that we got with this update, you might remember in one of the previous updates, they mentioned changing the text in the all for one talent, which is in the skill tree, that would be more clear about boosting the skill damage. And it seems like this is it here. This is the text. And you can kind of see this. It looks really strange. The secondary commander's active skill damage up. That's a lot of words to describe what it's meant by skill damage going up. I think before it used to say skill damage is up, and so maybe that was the point of confusion. Now it's being very clear that it's the secondary commander's active skill damage. That's from that all for one talent. I think it's 6 or 9% increase. When the primary commander casts a skill, the secondary commander's skill damage goes up. So this is here. You can actually see it in Lost Canyon as well. I noticed that, or Sunset Canyon. You can see that when your primary commander with the skill tree and that all for one talent activates the skill, this text is now coming up across the screen. So I guess that's an improvement, but that is a lot of text coming across the screen, and I'm not sure if that's really what they intended there. So those are the updates we know about so far. We also know there's some update of this legendary tavern coming in. I've been really wanting to crack open a bunch of legendary keys, and I'll try to pop my game back open. It will probably reset the whole thing here. I've been really wanting to open up these legendary these sovereign keys rather, but I'm waiting for this new event and to see if it's any good or better than what we currently have going on. So other update from RKVK, Zone 5 is done. I'll have a video here coming pretty soon. It took me a while to get it all together, talking about the fighting that we did in that in Zone 5. Long story short, we won the Zone 5. We are now preparing to head into Zone 6. We're continuing to upgrade our technology. And again, looking to unlock Nebuchadnezzar probably from those sovereign keys. So I'll keep you updated here as we learn more about this immigration situation. Right now, not super optimistic that it looks good for free-to-plays, but we'll see how it goes. And as I said, we'll keep you updated. Thanks so much for coming by, everybody. If you like this video, if you have an idea of what is going on, what the actual reality is for this immigration rule, post a comment down below. Let me know what's happening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.